Hello everyone and welcome to Ep 3 of 4 of Between Two Posts. Morgan Turinui, Sean Maloney, and in the middle, a guest that you've brought through, Morgan, and I was quite excited to see you dragging through Duncan McRae. Welcome to Between Two Posts.
Yeah, great to be here, Sean. Morgs, thanks for the invitation. You made me think a lot about going down memory lane over the past 2 days since Morgs invited me, and great to be here, lads, and hopefully I'm not as boring as as I am these days in my life.
We're talking about gout, we're talking about knee injuries, mate, getting to bed early. What happened to you? You got old, Dunk?
Morgs, I got old very quick. It's and the hair's going white as well, so... Yeah, gout. Yeah, it's a real old man's disease, Morgs. I've learned that in the last 12 months. I'm on the Len gout tablets, eating them like Tic Tacs at the moment.
We might have our first sponsor. There you go.
Yeah. I know. So, look, boys, getting old's no fun, Morgs. Yeah. You'll get there very soon.
I can take you through a tutorial on how to try to beat gout a little bit after the show as well. I have got a list of remedies, homemade and chemical backed as well for you, Dunk. Hey, before we get into it, let's quickly recap how you came to be here on Between Two Posts. Obviously, a number of years with the Waratahs. Before that, I played rugby league at a very high level with the Bulldogs, London Broncos as well. I think with the Rabbitohs for a touch as well.
Yep, kicked off at the Bunnies.
Before all that, your Wikipedia page lists you as a Puerto Rican schoolboy international.
Now,
is that true?
That is not true. That is my son who somehow got in and changed that. I think he made me 5'2". I think I'm no Andre the Giant, but I've got 5'2" covered. No, that is my son who's quite a bright kid, and I'm not really that laissez-faire with the computer and Wikipedia and Google and all that sort of stuff. I'm sort of let other people do that, but I can confirm my son changes my profile quite regularly on that, just as a G up to me, and I found it quite humorous. He actually got mentioned me one time before. I didn't believe it, but
well, he's your son then.
That's
definitely.
it. So he's not funny in normal, but he's obviously funny with the keyboard.
Just quickly though, you two obviously played Randwick together and at the Tars as well. Take us back to those days before we swing into our review of the weekend that's played out. You two went through with some pretty handy cattle, and you guys were both okay yourselves.
Yeah, well, I was obviously there before Morgs. I'm probably 10 years older than Morgs, and I remember Morgs coming through as sort of that first real, Morgs himself as that real big, fast, usually you play your 12 and 13. Your 12's a skillful guy, your 13's a hard runner. But sort of Morgs is sort of, the player that everywhere now, sort of skillful, could move, big, fast. And, mate, we had a lot of characters back in our day, and I think it was, I can't speak for Morgs, probably a good time for Morgs to come through. A lot of, experienced players, a lot of young players, and the changing of the guard of the Waratahs, I suppose, coming in. And it was a really good situation, I thought, for a young guy to come in and, Morgs burst onto the scene, and then he was probably playing for the Wallabies 12 months later. So I think a lot of, I think we changed a lot of the things that before he got there that we didn't have a winning culture, and I thought it was a good time. And guys like Chris Whittaker, Nathan Gray, Matt Burke, I think really changed the way the Waratahs were looked at and the way we played. And I thought it was a good situation for guys that come through and take run with the ball and take it to the next level for the next guys coming through.
Now you know why I brought Dunk on. His compliment. It's the nicest you've ever been to me ever.
I think that's honestly how I feel.
No, but you're right. So you come in, so you're a young back come in, blokes like Mark Gerard, myself coming in, and you're looking around the backs. When you're training, you've got Whittaker, McRae, Gray, Burke, Rogers, Takiri, Staniforth, even blokes like Milton Thido, Nathan Blacklock came through at times. It was an amazing crew to be a part of. And then Dunk was really instrumental in that 2002 season, which had an aberration, but made the semis, had a really good solid year. And from 03 onwards, that TARS group bounced off that with you and Mackenzie. I think the key to it, Dunk, we were talking about it, was moving from Narrabeen, where it took us an hour and a half to get to training from where we lived, to moving to the footy stadium. I think that was crucial.
That was it.
Yeah,
that was
it was the year after I left. Gone. So, I had to go to Narra, who's been for a long time. My little Ford Laser did a lot of Ks heading, I think it was the Wakehurst Parkway. I haven't been there back there since.
So. Matty Rogers did an engine in his car one year. He flogged it that much. So a few Ks from the Shire.
And also around that time as well, obviously club rugby was so strong, not just in Sydney, but across the country as well. Can you just sort of spin us back to that time as well in the Myrtle Green?
Well, I thought it was a great time. The best thing about it for me, I don't want to bring Morgan in this, was they actually started betting on it, which was the best thing for me.
It's taking you long enough to talk about betting.
So,
We're 3 minutes in.
They started betting on club rugby. So I remember one game, I shouldn't say this, but I will. We played Parramatta and we had, I think, we played, I think it was Parramatta, 13 Wallabies coming back. And obviously you don't know. And the prices went up at 11 o'clock every Saturday morning. I think we went up 48.5 start.
Handicap, yeah.
But the team we had, it was ridiculous. Owen Finnegan came back and Morgs came back. Chris Whittaker came back. There was truckloads of others. And I had blokes at tabs all around Sydney ready to go. And so I've had as much as I could on at the price. So I think the start went out to 58 now, but I got on at 48.5 and I was the goal kicker. Mm. So every time a try was scored, I would sprint back on the tee, boom, straight through, win or loss. I'd be back to halfway before the linesmen have their flags up.
Were you at Randwick?
We're at Coogee.
Gotcha.
And we led, I think, 56-0 at half time and won, I think, over for 3 figures. So it was they say you didn't get paid at club rugby back then, which was true. But so we had to find other ways to get through. But Randwick was a great time. Obviously, we had a good bunch of blokes. We all local guys, lived close to the ground. Good coaches. We had John Maxwell, and then we had, Checker and Noxie, and just different characters. And we pretty much ran our own show there. Like the players sort of drove everything. And, it was good to go back to club rugby. I really enjoyed it. Obviously Morgs wasn't back as much as I did, but it was a good time and good.
Just
people.
On that game, I remember that game because it was before I sort of knew what was going on. I was still the sort of young kid around, and we were up by about 25 points, and I scored a try, and I put it down sort of 15 in from touch. And Dunk's a pretty relaxed guy. He's absolutely sprayed me for not running it around under the post. He goes, "Mate, what do you do?" I said, "What are you talking about? That's the bonus point done after 20 minutes."
Between you blokes and a few guys at Eastwood, I think there were a few bucks made back in the day.
I'll tell you a good story. I'll never forget one day my favourite story. Brendan Williams, who was just a Randwick legend, phenomenal player for what he did. I remember one day, I think, because it was pretty, we'd have a few beers. Like Saturday, if your mates, you'd always say, "I'll be home by 9," but you could kick on a few. And I remember Brendan Williams at Manly one day. I got to the dressing room. He was just out of it in the dressing room. We didn't even we just let him stay there. We went and warmed up, come back in, woke him up. Thought, mate, how is this bloke going to do anything today? Mate, he scores 200-metre tries, has a man-of-the-match performance, just a freak on and off the field. And shout out to Dingo. I see him out Little Bay where I live all the time, and just a phenomenal. Played for the Waratahs and before he went back to Italy, and just a Randwick legend.
He was, he was a legend in Italy as well. When I was back there in 07, he was revered. Couldn't stop scoring tries. Let's swing into some of the action from the weekend, man. Let's recap it. Obviously, the headline game from the weekend: England v Australia. England make it 8 straight wins against Wallabies. Too good. 32-15 full time. We were a little nervous, Dunk, when we sat here last week. We had Andrew Mertens where you were around how things would go for Wallabies, and it ended up going to script, unfortunately.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole game, Sean. I've watched the highlights, but obviously I think the key probably is not scoring a try, obviously 3 penalty goals, but the thing that really just drives me mad, and I know a lot of people, is this the yellow card? That was just such a pivotal time, and where was he supposed to go?
Talking about Tom Wright's yellow card?
He fell into him.
Yep.
That's the thing that's really frustrating me about, the game at the moment is just I know we've got to protect the head and I understand all that, but I think there has to be some sort of players in there to describe to officials that it's a collision sport. Things are going to happen. I thought that was a point that you go down a man against them at home, it really makes it tough.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Is especially you watch a lot of league. We all watch a lot of league in Australia, so we have that lens as well. We're in league, and they've gone hard on crackdown. That's not even a bad one. There, Northern Hemisphere, they have different coloured glasses when they look at it, and everyone, yes, is saying player welfare. Let's change players' habits and get their body height. Yeah, exactly. But we're still looking for that perfect balance. You look at Fiji, who we'll talk about in a minute. They played so well, but they played with 14 men for 55 minutes, and for 20 of those 55 minutes, they were at 13 men with yellow cards. So that hurts.
What do you like about the Wallabies' performance? Who stood up in that losing side, and what are the good takeaways ahead of the game against Wales?
I actually think all of them stood up in terms of effort and work rate and ability to just hang in there. But in terms of the way we play our rugby, I thought we were really poor. Skill level was inaccurate. Calling systems were poor. Our line-out struggled at times, which has been a huge trump card really for us. And I'm interested to hear from Duncan was a classic number 10. He would steer you around the park. He'd kick your goals. He'd kick for touch. He did everything. He called the plays, and he really knew how to provide time and space for outside players. And then 35 minutes in, when he'd been passing, he'd go bang off the left foot. We're still trying to work out what our best 10 is, how our 10s are coming through. Quade Cooper, James O'Connor, the experience. Young guys like Noah Lolosio, Will Harris and Ben Donaldson. What are you looking for? What do you think a 10 should do? What's their role?
I think obviously they're 10. It's a completely different game. Obviously now Morgs, it's so much more structured with, sort of out the back and sweeping around. And, I still think, you look at that England try, that short ball, I still think the little short balls at the line are the key ones. Obviously, as you said, I think the main point was they're trying to find their right combination heading into the World Cups coming forward, and that's going to take time. You're going to have injuries. They've had a long season, but been on the road a long time.
Yep.
I think that plays a big key, but they've got to get up for Wales this week. You've got 7 days to turn it around. You're used to the conditions. The weather's getting worse over there. But England just seem to have our number, don't they, with Beaver and everything going on. They just seem to nail us to the pole, but that'll turn. That'll turn.
For someone who isn't as rugby savvy as the two of you are, can you explain to the general viewer why the Wallabies are playing so deep in attack, so far out the back? So they'll get the ball on the halfway line, for example, but by the time the guy, as far out as it heads, takes receipt of it, they might be 15, 20 metres behind where they started and never seem to get back over that initial point. Why do they play so deep and why do they play so out the back?
Well, I think you'll find that when the ball carriers are going forward and they're creating fast ruck ball, they actually do flatten up a fair bit. Some 10s like playing the pocket. James O'Connor is very much more a pocket 10 as opposed to, say, a Quade Cooper who wants to be on the line, say Richie Mo'unga for people who watch the All Blacks, right on the line as much as he can be. But a lot of it is predicated by speed of ruck ball and carry. And if you watch the England-Australia game as a snapshot, England spent the whole game going forward in attack and defence. Australia spent the game going backwards in attack, and that's why things got deeper and deeper, because when you've got nowhere to go through the middle, you need that space to get the ball wide to your strike players. Australia are good when they get front foot ball from their forward pack, and they haven't been getting it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think obviously it's the coach, that's the way he wants to play, boys, with the cattle that he has. That's sort of the definition of how, they want to be bred. Obviously they try and move the ball and, try and not get isolated in close against numbers, move it away from their key people. But, I still think you go back to it's a simple game. Run hard, tackle hard. I know you need tactics and I know you need, systems, but, I still think playing at the advantage line is the best way through, because defences are just so good these days.
Yeah.
They're so structured. Everyone's had a defensive coach since probably 20 years now. And everyone's so much bigger, stronger and faster. So I still think, just the little try and poke your head through the line, passing after the line, I think is the thing that's sort of gone away a bit. But, when it works good. But if you've got if every pass isn't bang on, if everyone doesn't know their role, it can break down pretty quick.
And it did that often the other night, unfortunately, for the Wallabies and Wallaby fans. So 32-15 full time there. Next up, Wales. One of the other highlights we should touch on, Ollie Hoskins making his debut, playing over there with London Irish. Got a chance, got some minutes and spoke so well full time around what it meant to him to represent Australia. Previous to that game, Ireland 29, New Zealand 20. An incredible finish over there in Dublin, fellas. Who would have thunk it?
Haven't they got a great record against the All Blacks? They seem to be one of those teams that they struggle against the minnows, but against the big boys, they aim up, especially at home, and they compete. You've played there. I haven't played there at international level. I've played there, club rugby wise. It's a very tough place to win in any part of Ireland. So they really, the home fans burn. They're passionate. And they're well coached, and they find weaknesses in good teams and compete and keep it close, and they build a score, they get a lead, and they made it difficult for you. I wasn't surprised. I thought it'd be a close game myself. Surprised that they won, but they find ways to, New Zealand play a certain way. They love playing a skillful game and, high energy, high pace. They find a way to slow it down, and they're real physical. And a lot of teams don't like real physical.
We were kind of across it, Morgs, and led up to that Wallabies game.
Yeah, that we were trying to get our prep done as well as I was watching the game and laughing at Andrew Merton screaming at his iPhone next to us. But look, I think they do a lot of things right on and off the field. They've got their structure right. We often compare ourselves to New Zealand, whereas I think it's probably a good idea to compare ourselves to Ireland, Wales and Scotland in terms of their setup. We talk about alignment. We talk about centralised models. The Ireland model is probably the most apt for Australia going forward. And on the field, they're a smart team. They've got a good leader in Johnny Sexton on the field, 101st test.
Yep.
They know their game. They know each other. They know themselves. And it was rare to see, I think you just referenced it, it's rare to see the All Blacks almost outworked by a team, and that's what Ireland did. I think they know the way they want to play so well. They're well drilled. And off the back of the Joe Schmidt era, I've been really impressed by how Farrell's continued to help them improve. They probably should have won by more.
Dunk, back to your point, though, they've been up for a long time. They use some horse racing parlance and into camp, the All Blacks, so maybe a bit of fatigue for some of these Southern Hemisphere sides, but none slowing down for the Springboks. Too good for Scotland. 30-15 came back. They were down at the break there. Mapimpi, the difference, just keeps finding the line, Morgs.
Yeah, I think we talked about last week that Scotland set up that the way they want to play really would struggle against South Africa, and that's the way it was. You know, they want to play up tempo. They play probably most like the Wallabies of any Northern Hemisphere team, and South Africa were able to muscle them out of it, and then their firepower out wide makes you pay.
Wales finish all over the top of Fiji, 38-23, but that game highlighted by some incredible tries from the Fijians. They were down to 13 men for large parts of the game, still found a way to score tries. Weiss-Neither-Levu was incredible. I tell you what, everyone's so pumped, fellas, to see the Endure, to see more Fiji in action week in, week out next year. You must be pumped for that, Duncan.
I am, but I'm glad I'm not playing because they hit like steam trains, to be honest with you. Like, let's be honest, can't they? They know what they're doing. Great team. Can they back it up week in, week out? That's probably the thing. They get themselves up for that big occasion. Yeah, well, I'd love to see, there's a big Fijian population, obviously, here in Australia. It'd be a big game. But, do we want to play them? If they sneak a win against us, how's that for our confidence? They're
physios and chiropractors
in a one-off game, but, it's great to see the Pacific nations, really getting an opportunity at that high level, in prime time against good teams, in front of home, big crowds. They deserve that. They're a team that plays all over the world individually for clubs across, and when they come together, they certainly aim up. There's no two ways about it.
It's going to be a big squad that they'll have to work with for 2023 World Cup. It'll be an enormous pool they'll be able to draw from.
Yeah, and remembering that they're in the Wallabies pool once again with Wales, as we always seem to be at World Cup time. Look, playing consistently with the Ndrua, having a core group of guys together for that, having better access to their overseas players, and having a long lead into the World Cup in 2023 makes them the danger team. Take the red card away, and they're in the driver's seat to beat Wales there on the weekend. Their set pieces ever improving. They're just going to get better and better and better, and they're a great model for the other Pacific nations to follow through and be similar going forward.
Some other wins across the weekend. Argentina, too good for Italy, and then France, too good for Georgia. So that'll set us up for some mouth-watering matchups in the final week of the Autumn Series games. We'll get to them a little bit later, but right now we're going to check in on some of the lighter stuff from the weekend. We'll start with a couple of bumps and grinds from across the weekend. Geordie Barrett getting there, and there is Fiku laying out the Georgian 10. Other biff and barge from Nick White, of all people, with one of the best try savers here. Bomb try time now. We had a couple from the NPC where you had Gibson Park struggling and James Lowe struggling, and Whitey getting real cheeky there, trying to shut down that one. It was underwear all the way around on the weekend, Morgs, and this... Well, one of the tries from across our internationals at the weekend, BB Parsons. It's Ireland v the USA, reining that one in and spinning away for an absolute classic 5-pointer. This is not bad either from LZ. We'll see him do his thing this weekend against the Wallabies. What a put down there at the Principality. But this, the try of the weekend, and who else but Bulavanaka. Go, Fiji, go, and it's Weiss-Neither-Levu on the end of an awesome lead-up bit of work. Fiji, how good. Righto, from the genius of Weiss-Neither-Levu to the smarts of rugby writing supremo with the Sydney Morning Herald, Georgina Robinson, who joins us, fellas, for our next hit of Against the Headlines. Rob, how you doing? It's so nice to have you back.
It's so nice to be back. God, give me work and rugby over wiping bottoms. Any day.
Yep, so you've had the arrival of number 3 there. You've been missing through some Matt Lee, but it's so nice to have you back doing your thing and sinking your teeth into rugby stories across the world. And we're going to head to the UK for our first up headline, G-Rob, with some of the bosses from RA over there trying to push the Australian World Cup bid. How's it all tracking?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time to ask me that, because I'm not sure how it's tracking or if it's tracking quite as well as they hoped it would be tracking. There's a cast of thousands over there at the moment. They're throwing everything at getting the 2027 World Cup. John Coates is there. He's been marshalled in to help with this. Twiggy Forrest is there. They've invited him along to a couple of test matches. And then there's also, every official from Rugby Australia, the chairman, the CEO, the head of the World Cup bid, and of course Phil Kearns is there as well. What they want over there is they want a handshake agreement to go into targeted dialogue, which basically announces that Australia is the preferred candidate to host the 2027 Rugby World Cup here, but they haven't got it yet. And the other thing they also wanted to do before they left Australia was lock in Commonwealth government support, which is about $300 million they need from all of the governments around Australia, including the feds and the states that want to host the games, to kind of get this off the ground, because the Rugby World Cup needs to be a money spinner for world rugby. And that's the one thing that a country like England and potentially America can deliver over and above Australia, because they're much bigger markets. So Australia needed to have this government money locked in. They haven't had it locked in yet. They're still encouraged, but there are a few little goals to clear first, and those haven't happened. So it's an interesting space, and I'm keeping in touch with everyone over there.
Well, Georgina, you might have noticed I've retired the whistle. I blew Jim Kays off the park last week, and I've done a Roman pot this week. Out of respect for having you back, I've retired the whistle. From the off-field stuff to the on-field stuff, Dave Rennie preparing for Wales this week and going forward. What's he got to do, Dave Rennie, at the moment?
Look, he's got to figure out whether his captain Michael Hooper is fit. Hoops is getting scans on his ankle Monday sometime UK time. They think it's a soft tissue injury in his foot at the moment, but scans are going to confirm that. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, we've taken Hoops for granted for so long, and he is the bionic man who never picks up any major injury. And I don't know if you're Dave Rennie, I'm clearly not Dave Rennie, but if you are you thinking about, and if you're Michael Hooper, are you thinking about maybe sitting this one out rather than risk aggravating an injury? If the scans are good on Monday, and giving someone else a go and giving Hoops a rest.
Yeah, quickly on the back of that, I suppose, Colby Fainga's in camp still, is that right? And would they rue leaving Fraser McRae, very obviously the second best number 7 in Australia at home for a Queensland pre-season?
Yeah, potentially. Although, I mean, that'll reap rewards for Dave next year, and certainly for the Reds. But I think back row is the one area when I look at the team and I think about the Wallabies, I'm not worried about their back row stocks. Name any other position, and I think it's squeaky bum time, but at least in the back row, there's a lot of cover and a lot of different combinations that could work.
I've got Duncan McRae here with me, G-Rob, who you can see he refuses to ask a journalistic-based question.
I don't ask questions.
He doesn't ask questions.
I've interviewed you once. Do you remember it?
I hope I wasn't inebriated or something.
No, I have had a few of those interviews with former players over the years, but no, I think it was ahead of the Lions test. And,
of course, that's the only time we rolled Duncan.
Yeah.
We've gone a bit early.
Good segue. We're going to catch up with him a little bit more around that in a second. G-Rob, just quickly run us through the reaction in Ireland around their coach Farrell off the back of that big win against the All Blacks on the weekend as well.
Oh, well, Brian O'Driscoll's led the charge. There's this national obsession. It's actually starting to feel like New Zealand pre-2011, when the whole nation was obsessed with them winning the World Cup. They'd obviously been world champions all the time, world number ones all the time, but had never won the World Cup. Well, Ireland's never made it past it, never made it into a World Cup semi-final. And every time, in the professional era in the last 20 years, they've peaked too early before a World Cup, midway through the cycle. Joe Schmidt had them humming. They beat the All Blacks. They did everything right. And then, of course, they didn't make a World Cup semi-final. And there's this there's this petrification in Ireland at the moment. At the weekend, they beat the All Blacks. Only the third time they've done it in about 110 years of test match rivalry between the nations. And everyone is petrified that they are again peaking too early. And Brian O'Driscoll had his son's christening at the weekend and put up a photo on Twitter, the prayer of the faithful, saying, Lord, hear our prayer. Please ensure that Ireland has not peaked too early again. So it goes into every aspect of their lives.
Very good. All right, well, we're going to let you fly, G-Rob, back to the crew. But if things go well, as Morgs and I hope, we'll potentially have you back on Between Two Posts again in 2022.
Brilliant. Well done. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Righto, fellas, let's get into the preview for what's to come this weekend, starting with Australia v Wales. Can they finish with a win to round out 2021?
You got to tip Australia, eh? I'm tipping with my heart, Morgs. Obviously, a tough end to. They're hard to beat at home, Wales. I reckon it'll be a tight game. I can't see many points being scored. I'll go Australia 21-16 for me. Sean?
Nice and tight.
Is it the algorithm you got going?
No,
or your traders have told you what to say coming in?
It's under the 44 and a half.
Yes, okay. Well, I think a lot is to do with Michael Hooper, whether he gets up or not. I know it would take a lot to keep him out, but he didn't look crash-shot. He didn't look overly confident post-game. Colby Fainga's in the squad. Fraser McRight's doing pre-season at Ballymore, so he's a long way from playing for the Wallabies this week. So that will be huge in the balance of that back row. You look at what Valentini's been able to do. You look at what Pete Samu can do off the bench. All those sorts of things change if there's no Michael Hooper. I thought even in that small period on the weekend we saw that absence, that lack of cohesion in the back row, that flows right throughout the team. I think Australia has the team, has the game to be able to beat Wales at the Principality Stadium. No, Michael Hooper would change that balance a little bit.
We're not going to see a squad till obviously later in the week. Who will start at 10? Noah back in, or will James O'Connor stay at fly half?
Well, I think you'd leave O'Connor. Like, he's been out for 5 months. He's played 2 games back. Just stick with that. So many things. Look, the Wallabies had 15 issues on the weekend. About the 12th ranked one was who was playing 10. Get line out right. Get your front foot carry right. Get the short passing, interchange of passing with your forward pack right at the game line. Try and play a bit flatter when you can. Get your tactical kicking right. All those things are more important than who wears the 10 jersey. Let James O'Connor start. And if you want to give Noah some more time off the bench, why not? We're still looking to push our depth.
I agree, Morgs. He's got to start. Set piece will be crucial, especially against Wales, just to get that, first phase ball and really get on the front foot, as you said, and, stamp how they want to play early. But if you get on the back foot against Wales, they know how to defend a lead as well.
What chance is Parisi starting this weekend?
Well, it's probably where you put him in terms of balance. What do you want to stick him in the midfield? Do you stick him on the wing and let him go? I'm still keen to see Tom Wright get an extended period in the slot there in the absence of Marika Corambetti. Kirtley would probably get another start there at 15 because they really need to make a decision on whether Kirtley Beale is part of the equation going forward or this was just a stopgap measure for this tour at this moment. So the more footy they get to see around Kirtley Beale, the more informed the decision is. They know Isaiah Parisi will be part of the Wallabies World Cup squad in 2023. The flip side of that is, does it mean, well, you just play him anyway because we want to see him?
So Kirtley Beale at 15, you got him.
Well, I'd just like to find out. Like right. It's look, we don't want to go winless the last 3 tests on this tour, but there's guys missing, nothing you can do about it. Let's find out. Let's get definitive answers around players moving forward. Let's start Will Skelton. Don't play him for 17 minutes off the bench when the game's pretty much gone. Let's start him and let's see if he can play international football. Kirtley Beale's a similar equation.
So 21-16, you've got full time?
Yeah, I'm with
I've got to
Morgs.
write that down too, actually.
What's the downside with not playing Will Skelton?
Yeah, let's find out. We're not finding out 17 minutes at the end of a test match.
And
let him go.
You said, Morgs, that the World Cup's in France, so you're going to have blokes that are used to Northern Hemisphere conditions like Skelton. Kirtley Beale's got another 2 years to run there, has he? So yeah. He'll be, sort of know how to play in those conditions. I think you do need those guys. You need experience, especially, say, if we're in Fiji and we're in a tight game, that's where you want Beale and you want Skelton, the guys that have been playing at that top level in European rugby to get them over the line.
Game 3 of what will be essentially a World Cup mini morning for us on Sunday, fellas. France v NZ. This potentially could be the test match of the year.
This is the one I was waiting for. I actually looked past Ireland, New Zealand thinking this one's going to be huge. The bounce back is always drastic from an All Blacks loss. So they're going to be at the peak of their powers. And I just love France. I love their 9, 10, 12, whether they're playing Dupont with Entomac, which I'd love to see, or they got Jaminet elsewhere. They got players everywhere that are exciting, and that, you know, we talk about set piece, physicality, so important, Northern Hemisphere and Test footy at all times. France have that as well. This is going to be a ripper game.
Yeah, keen on the All Blacks, Sean. As Morg said, they don't lose too many. They won't be losing twice in 7 days. I think they'll win and win easy.
What do you reckon the career stats are around the All Blacks losing 2 on the spin? They'd be minimal, wouldn't they?
Well, they don't lose many until they get to a World Cup. So when they lose there, they're out. They can't lose 2 in a row.
It's normally loss, aeroplane.
It'd be a very small number that they've ever dropped 2 on the spin. So France NZ. So you're both going with the All Blacks to get it done there against Le Bleu. England South Africa. It's the World Cup repeat, and it will be tasty.
It's another one Eddie would have put a circle around in the calendar. Obviously important playing Australia for him as a former coach of the Wallabies and a proud Australian. But this will be, he'll do anything but say the word revenge this week, but this will be one he'll have eyed off. He'll have reviewed hard the way they lost and why they lost that World Cup final, and obviously the way they match up. They'll just try and batter each other into submission.
They weren't awesome the other night, England.
Oh, I'm tipping South Africa here. I think they've got the wood on. I think how big and physical they are. Really, England try and play that game where they try and manhandle you, but they can't do that to South Africa. They're just 2 big cats, man. They're big from 1 to 22. They just keep coming at you. And the goal kicker, he's not going to miss.
Yes.
And I think it'll be a tight game. I don't think there'll be many points in that game.
And we've got another game as well. We've got another one from the World Cup.
But wait, there's more on Stan
We get another
Sport.
swing at it on Stan. Scotland v Japan, and I'm thinking that'll be tight as well. I know that Japan got pants by Ireland the other week. That form's been nailed down with a win against the All Blacks. I reckon Japan will go close.
It'll be a good game to watch because they both like to play. They both have a high passing to kick ratio team. Scotland love to play. Japan will as well. Look, I think they've regressed, Japan. 2019 World Cup was the zenith, and they've slowly gone backwards. Perhaps it's also the geography during COVID of what they could and couldn't do in terms of games. No more Sunwolves, but they've just dropped off the back. They're in danger of losing contact with the peloton, and I think Scotland might be too good for them.
Sean, I've got no idea, to be honest with you. I'm not really up to my Japanese rugby international team, but I've got a very Scottish name in Duncan McRae, so I'll be tipping Scotland, just the fact that I really don't know much about the game.
There we go. And I'm not going to go to you then for Italy v Uruguay, because chances of you knowing much of the Los Terros,
mate,
minimal.
Geography wasn't my best subject at school, so I don't even know where Uruguay is.
We'll get your son on next time, maybe.
Ireland v Argentina should be a good one as well, with Argentina putting 2 wins together across the last couple of weeks. Romania v Tonga, and then Georgia Fiji, where you'd suggest the Fijians will be too good. So that's how the weekend looks, fellas.
Plenty of rugby.
Busy.
Wall to wall, and wall to wall on Stan's socials across the weekend gone as well.
With all those games, plenty going on social. Nick White, the moustache game is strong, better than Drew Mitchell's November effort. Ollie Hoskins.
What a story.
That's just a great story.
Ollie Hoskins.
So much to him living that Wallaby dream, Duncan McRae. How good's been a Wallaby, Duncan McRae?
What's that like?
Wallaby and stuffings. It's a bit of interesting food there. And then, look, this is disrespectful, truthfully. Just watch the replay on Stan Sport. How hard is it?
No, watch it live on Stan Sport on the phone at date night. Get your eyes around it, men.
And Dublin Airport, I don't get this from Dublin Airport, Sean. They're just having a crack at Kiwis and Bilbo Baggins. I'm not sure what's happening
I believe they
there.
call that throwing shade.
All right. Stay humble, Dublin Airport. Well, plenty going on with the socials, but now it's time for the most popular segment on Between Two Posts, Touring with Turinui. I've had one story and haven't had to tell another one, and that's half the reason you're on Dunk, because I do have another story about Duncan I want you to talk about.
What I'm known for around the world is the Ronan O'Gara, sort of incident that I had with him, and it's 20 years ago. I think my son told me the other day the YouTube's up to about 4.5 million views. So it's good to be known for something, Sean. But I'll go back. There's a bit of a backstory to how it all happened. I played for Saracens. I think it was in 2000. The Lions came in 2001, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we're playing a big cup game up in Leicester. And obviously Leicester, Martin Johnson, Neil Back. Who else was there? Pat Howard played for them at the time. Big team, big game to get in the big final. And I remember there's a bit of backstory how this all come about. So we played a game and Pat Howard, or someone I think it was Austin Healy made a break, and Pat Howard was looming up. He would have gone. So I've just tackled him early, like just sort of, as the ball, I was just before. And as I've gone to get up, Martin Johnson's come through and kneed me straight in the ribs. Honestly, I thought my ribs popped out of he was a big man. I thought my ribs popped out of my mouth. It nearly killed me. And I'm out. I'm splattered on the ground. He's walked over the top of me as well. And it was the most pain. Still hasn't got the rib back. I don't know where it is in my body.
Yeah.
And I remember Michael Liner was in commentary, who actually played for Saracens, and he was over there commentating at the time. And Martin Johnson was the England captain, the Lions captain. So the replay picked it up. It looked horrendous, Michael tells me. So they're there at half time. I've been carried off, out for the game, out for 8 weeks, just half dead. And they weren't going to show the incident because he was the England captain. You don't do anything to him. And Noddy said, well, if you don't show that, I'm walking off now. So they showed it. He got cited. And over there, they made me turn up to the judiciary. And I'm like, oh, mate, I'm half dead. I don't want to be there. I'm going to go home for 8 weeks, whatever. So I've turned up, walked into the room, and he's shaking hands with all the judiciary members, and I'm going, what am I doing here? And they've showed it up, and he ended up getting 20 days suspension, but the suspension finished midnight before the first test. So it was just an absolute. Yeah. So I thought, if I ever get chance to get one, I'm backing these blokes. I'm not a midget, but I'm going to give it a crack.
Yep.
And then I went home back to the Waratahs and obviously played in that game. And even before that game, the test was 7 days later, the first test, which massive build up. Well, there's so many people here. It was a huge time for rugby, a massive time with the Lions. And we were like worded up, if you get hold of someone, don't half do it. We wanted to look after the test team. I'm not saying it would have softened them up, but if you get hold of, if you could, knee in, whatever it was. And everyone forgets that game. Tommy Bowman got the quickest yellow card, I think, that was ever in the history of rugby, because we kicked off and Tommy's just a big gangly bloke. He went up, didn't mean it. But I don't know, I think it was Danny Grucock or Munt. He's elbowed him straight in the face off, and he got yellow carded in under 30 seconds.
Yeah. There's a reason he's got a nickname Disaster.
Yeah, so back to what happened with my incident, sort of, Agara come through once to clean. I don't know what I was doing near a ruck, firstly, because I was never there, but it sort of come to elbow me, and I've just caught his elbow straight in my face. I thought, you, so I've sort of, mate, if this cat comes near me again, it's not going to have a problem, but I've got to stick up for myself, sort of thing. Same thing happened sort of 15 minutes later, and I've got up and I've sort of seen him at the last second go to just elbow me straight in the face, and I've just caught him and I've swung him under, and he sort of ended up on the ground right under me, and I just said to him, what the are you going to do, champ? And he's just kicked me straight in the nuts, and so I've just pinned him, and the rest is history, so so, and then the worst thing, I got sent off. The worst thing, I feel bad. I'm not feel bad for what I'd done, to be quite honest. We were in a close game. We actually could have won the game. Yeah. That's what I'm more disappointed. I let my teammates down that way. But I had to walk past their bench, and they all sort of walked off their bench. And I'm thinking, I'm in enough trouble here. Am I going to get into a fight in the tunnel here? Like that Austin Healy walked at me and sort of dropped a little shoulder. I thought, oh man, I can't. I just sort of walked off. And the next day it was the same. I was at the judiciary, and he's turned up, and Bob Dwyer, I love Bob. I'm a big fan of Bob. He's pissed himself when he's walked in. He looked like the elephant man. He puts his head, he goes, I can't believe you. I was like, so neither can I, Bob. So Bob sort of looks over, leached over, and goes, oh, mate, I think we're in a bit of trouble here. And I went, and so Bob starts the defence, and he's sitting there, and honestly, I didn't see him after the game. He must have one of those diseases where he just bruises easily. I was actually shocked. It looked horrendous. It was bordering on I wasn't very happy with myself. And Bob leans over and Bob starts his defence. He leans back. He goes, well, obviously Duncan was provoked, and if we're going to send someone to do this, if we'd send this little fella, so Bob tried his best. I got the long suspension, and the rest is history. And mate, this was before pre-mobile phones, they'd just come out. So I mustn't have had a private number at my house. The messages on my answering machine at home.
They found you?
Oh, they found me easily.
Really?
Like, I'm going to kill you, ever come over?
It would be the scruffy.
But then you had to go over there.
Well, then,
I know
it would have been the scruffy Murphy. It would have been the scruffy Murphy.
And then the
crew.
worst thing was,
we're talking
McRae.
Junction.
so like I was enemy number one over there. I'll tell you, so I moved over there. Obviously, I'll tell you. So the first thing, so I finished with the Waratahs. I was never going to get to that next level, so I thought I'll finish my career overseas. We've got a bit more money, and I signed with Gloucester. It was a great team. Had a great time there. Great bunch of fellas. Really successful team. But as soon as I signed, then they said, "Oh, can you do a bit of media for us?" So no, sweet. So on the phone, I found out like a minute later after I signed, we're in the same European Cup bracket as Munster, and my head's like, "How's luck?" And over there, there's only 4 teams, in the pool, and you play each other home and away. And I thought, I've got to go to this hometown of this bloke and play. So that was my first incident. And then just before we flew over to play in his hometown, one of the boys brought in a paper. I don't know if it was the Times or whatever the rugby paper was, and it was the 5 worst incidents that ever happened on a sporting field. Ever.
Not just rugby, just sporting field.
I can't remember number 5, but number 4 was Eric Cantona karate kicking the guy in the thing.
Yeah.
Number 3 was Mike Tyson biting the ear off.
Yeah.
I was number 2. Number 1 was Monica Seles getting stabbed on the court.
You were wrong.
I was like, I said, geez, they can hold a gun to these people, So I had to go. So we played Munster at home week 1. We beat them there, but then I had to go to his hometown. So you can imagine the talk of the week. We beat them, and back to his hometown. All the clubs get death threats if he comes up. I found it it rattled me a bit. I've got to be honest. I'm a pretty crazy cat.
Yeah.
So I had to check in under different names. One of the guys that wasn't in the squad here to sleep in my room that was under me.
Can you imagine when they were selecting the roomies, everyone would have been like, whoa.
Yeah. So I was
get your own room, Duncan.
I can't remember Limerick or Cork. They call it Stab City. So I'm just like, I'm petrified flying in. And I don't know, Tom and Parks, it's a tough place to play at many times. The All Blacks got beat there, Munster beat them, so they got a big, and I remember, but they're a real respectful crowd. Like if you're a goal kicker, you can't hear a pin drop. But I was kicking goals. First time the pin, you couldn't hear it. Just abused me the whole time, like, oh, I'm going to kill you. And then I remember at the end of the game, we're getting beaten. I was like, because over there at Thomond, they run onto the field after the game. And I thought, how the hell am I going to get into the dressing room? So thank God they got a penalty right at the death and they've kicked for goal. And I said to the ref, I can't remember who it was, I said, mate, is the game done? He goes, mate, this is the last play. And I thought, so I've just wormed my way over close as I could to the sideline. The leather wouldn't have kicked the ball. I was up the tunnel. I was sat in the dressing room before the flags went up. And it was a tough. I was sprinting up there. Like, thank God. So I just thought, well, everyone will be watching the ball, so they won't see me. Sort of. I had to get security back to the bus, and it was looking back now. But even now, I'm a bit on social media with the work that I do. I still occasionally get the death threat, which is
the occasional
so they can hold a grudge.
Wow.
The paddies,
20 years and counting, eh?
But yeah, that's so. It obviously wasn't a good time. I do regret doing it, but it is what it is, and
it's done now.
Yeah.
It's you might get a few more hits on YouTube.
There
might be a few more views.
Is he buried the hatchet runner? He likes a pun. Is he a blue bet member?
Well, apparently someone built a few houses on what he lost in Ireland, so that's what the word around town. But no, I don't know him personally. Never really chatted about
Probably
it.
not going to happen now either.
Well, we should do a charity boxing match.
There you go.
Going forward.
When the Lions next come back down here, you should tee that up.
When are they here, Sean?
Because not long now.
2025. Classic Wallabies. You can come play for us.
They do re-get me out every. Well, they've only been here once since, haven't they?
13.
Yeah, 13. Yeah, 13. Dunk, you finished strongly as expected. Mate, thanks for joining Between Two Posts. It's nice
to get
be here
amongst you boys and doing a great job with Stan.
From a guy from...
loving it, boys. Good to see Morgs.
Yeah.
Mate, very good.
He did look after me.
No, he's come a long way. He's come a long way. But Morgs was always the 18-year-old going on 35. So nothing much changed. Doing a good job.
Not much changes, and not much changes ahead of next week's episode as well. We'll be back same time, same place with another hit of Between Two Posts.